All right, we're back here for the Amethyst cards here. So let's start off with Antonio Madrigal. Unexciting, kind of vanilla-based character. We've seen better cards at the stat line. It's not really something to get excited about. Solid 2 stars for stats and limited play. Not anything to really write home about. I'm not certain if the Madrigal deck wants this stat line, and this is my cat Sage, was starving for attention a second ago, but now he's showing you his butt. Moving on. Yep, alright, bye. They need to take a nap now, that's what they need. Bell, Accomplished Mystic. One of the cards I think is actually really strong. And even that's devoid of looking at what it can shift onto, which there isn't much right now that it can shift onto and be too impactful with. But a 5-cost 4/4 that can kind of move some damage around seems pretty powerful. I mean, how many times has a Maui that you've played challenged something, and then, you know, that was their only character in play? They've passed the turn back trying to develop more. Then you can follow it up with something like this to move the damage that the Maui has onto whatever they played, potentially just killing it. And that's a solid effect, getting to heal up your Maui again and also kill something else. It can work with any self-damaging effects too. But solid card. I'm pretty excited for this one, to be honest. I think it has a lot of potential to see play and kind of take a similar role to what kind of Yzma does in a lot of ways, which acts as a removal for Amethyst, maybe giving some space for maybe an Amber Amethyst aggro deck that kind of uses this as a top end to help protect its characters and also function as a little bit of removal. So I'm giving this a solid 4 stars. I think it's very powerful. Even again, without many cards to shift on that are relevant or even exist. So solid card, big fan. One of the best ones I think for Amethyst. There are a few that are pretty good, but this one I'm actually excited out just to play. You know, it's just a fine stat line, 4/4. Again, dodges some key removal in the format and survives a lot of things too. Still hits by the fox, but you know, no, pretty excited and definitely want to play more with this. See where else it can fit into. Moving along, images aren't the greatest. So this is a 3-cost 3/3 Bell that moves 1 damage when you play it. Has 1 lore, I believe. Fine, not something I'm really looking to shift onto. As I said with the previous card, it's not a shift card I'm looking to play really there, but you could shift. I like the art on this one, it's kind of cool. But this one's a 2.5 stars. It's not ideal. 3-cost 3/3, move 1 damage. Might not kill anything, might be too relevant, but it's fine stat line, and yeah. Bruno Madrigal. When you play the character, chosen character gets when this character is banished and challenged, you may return it to your hand. Boy, this is a lot to ask for an uninkable 5-cost. I'm giving this a 2. It's so many uninkables in the Madrigals. I'm wondering why. Sure, you can play this essentially and rebuy your rabbit, which is kind of what the best situation would be. You rebuy your Merlin rabbit when you play this after you trade it off, but it's a little bit costly, and I don't think it's better than the Bell. I don't think it's better than a lot of other things you can play on 5, especially being uninkable. Maybe you play the Madrigal deck as a one-of to rebuy. You know, you play your grandma, you put this on top of your deck. You can play this, choose Grandma Madrigal, and then challenge that in to rebuy it to then set up something else on top of your deck. I don't know. I'm not to experiment with a card that asks this much of you to play, and it being uninkable again is pretty rough. One of the cards that is not uninkable and could see some play is Bruno. Evasive on a 3/3 for 4. Fine stats. Name a card, meaning the first part of the card, not the full name. It doesn't have to be specifically a card you can only have 4 of in your deck. It could be one that you have more. So you have all 99 puppies, and you can just name puppies and just always hit. If it is the name card, you put it to your hand and then gain 3 lore. Otherwise, just put it back. So huge effect. Potentially just a 4-cost 3/3 that has the ability to exert to draw a card and gain 3 lore. Pretty big swing. Works well with Grandma Madrigal because you know what the top card is going to be. And also works pretty well with untap effects, maybe LeFou or something like that. If you can set up multiple cards on the top of your deck with, let's just say in this deck's instance, actually, I just realized that. Hold on, no, it's not Recruiter. Sticking with this card or Bosses on a Roll or LeFou, you can essentially sing, let's just say you have a 3-cost Maleficent in play, this in play, and then you Bosses on a Roll and have 2 LeFous in hand. Well, you just get to gain 9 lore, and that can be really powerful. This card doesn't look it on the surface and doesn't have to be played with Madrigal, but this card with Boss on a Roll and another card that works pretty well with Boss on a Roll is one of the set 2 Mulans. But yes, this card can be very powerful. I'm giving this one, I think, 3.5 stars. It's right in between there. It's right on the brink of being very good. Its stat line might prohibit that, but getting around the ability to be shut off by a Reckless effect, which is going to see more play, I think. I think Lyle is being discovered by a lot of people. It's a card I've had my eye on for a bit. But also, just the ability to repeatedly gain lore in one turn with bosses on a roll is incredibly powerful. And yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I mean, if you think of it, pairing this with LeFou and Arthur and boss on roll, that's a lot of lore out of nowhere. So it really does have the potential to be explosive. I think people would get a little bit pigeonholed with this card being played into the Madrigals. So kind of don't think of it like that, and more so just a very, very powerful card that can gain a bunch of lores if you get the turn back with it with certain cards. So it's a build around. It's a cool build around. Hopefully it works out. Evasive gives it some legs too, just to kind of sit there and play and miss. But yeah, certainly powerful. All right, Quimilio Madrigal. So at the start of your turn, you may choose to have this be a 2-lore character or a Challenger 2. So it's either a 4-cost 4/5, which pretty good stats, or a 4-cost 2/5 with 2 lore. It's fine. It's not exciting. It's in the 2-star, fine for limited play. I don't think it'll see much constructive play. Even though it can challenge pretty well, we've seen a lot of things really need to have that third point of power. Like if this was a 3/5 that gained 1+1 challenger, I'd give it a little bit more points there just because it survives or at least trades off with a fox hit. As it stands, it kind of gets eaten by fox pretty well with 1 point on it. So I'm not excited by it. Moving on with this one. Dolores Madrigal. One of the cards that could be really good. When you play this, if an opponent has an exerted character, you draw a card. So most of the time in early games, there are exerted cards just because people are trying to start getting ahead a little bit. It's not great against aggressive decks, and against some of the more controlling decks, it falls in the range of just being okay in mid-range battles where you're kind of just fighting with what you have, and replacing yourself is always really good. And obviously we have cheaper ways to replace ourselves with cards like Maleficent and Fox, but this one is inkable as opposed to, or not Fox, Merlin Rabbit, but this one does have 2 lore. And one of the things the Ruby Amethyst decks have kind of struggled with is a lot of their characters don't quest very well. They're all 1 lore characters, and you're just kind of eventually surmounting an advantage, and that's why they're playing Queen's Castle. Now, is this better than Queen's Castle? Does it fit into every deck? No, but it's a solid card, and definitely for limited play, but also could see play. The stats are just reasonable enough. Maybe if it was a 4/3, I think we would definitely be there. As a 3/3, a little bit weak, but it's almost there. It could be played. Wouldn't be surprised. Elsa Stormchaser. Pretty interesting card. I remember the day this was released, earlier that day, I had asked a couple of my friends how much, would a 2-cost 2/1 in Ruby that has Reckless, but also the ability to exert to give something Challenger 2 and rush to the turn be okay? Another character or something like that. And then they previewed this. So it's a different color and different cost, but similar, how good is the ability to exert to give rush? And this one gives Challenger as well. This one could be very good. I'm obviously weary of the uninkable count in a lot of decks, and the stat line itself isn't very good, but there's the potential there. We haven't seen a lot of decks that really utilize the ability to exert opposing characters, but having something like this to kind of sit and play against someone who can't deal with it too effectively, having 4 health is pretty good. It doesn't get smashed or anything like that. And +2 for the Challenger definitely helps against locations. This kind of helps check locations in a lot of ways, kind of just being in play, because you never know what they're going to play, and help buffs your Maui, things like that. But give me just a moment here. Could see play. I think it's a solid 3 stars. I wouldn't be thrilled or too surprised if it didn't see play, but it's also something that I think could see play. Works well with Pinocchio, yes. All of the above. All right, moving on. Float Sam. 3 costs, 4/2, uninkable. Ugh. When this character is banished, a challenger returns to your hand. So not too bad in that department. Much like a Snowman from set 1, the 5-cost or the 6-cost 5/5 that returns to your hand, and it kind of protects your Jetsams. I'm not super excited by this card. We have cards like Hey Hey, which are 2/1s for 2, which are inkable. The inkability of that really helps with having this deep play. And 2 health on this is a little bit too weak, but I don't see. There is a world where this could be played, and for that, it's going to get a 2.5. It's reasonable. It's not great. It's probably not going to see play, but the 4 strength is a pretty big stat line. And you know, it being able to quest pretty freely with just the downside being returning to your hand could be good. Of course, it's going to get killed by any kind of removal, but it does dodge Medusa, so it can't get Medusa. But getting hit by Storm Rage on is pretty poor. Yeah, Float Sim, yeah. I'm going to give this one, this is going to fall into the 2.5 star rating as well. Just kind of an okay card. Has the potential, but probably not great. All right. So Float Sim and Jet Sim, shift, discard 2 cards. I was pretty excited for this card when I first saw it, not knowing what the rest of the Float Sim and Jet Sim were going to be like. This is inkable, and discarding 2 cards is a heavy cost. However, the fact that there's nothing that costs 2 in this game right now that you can shift onto except for Morph, and one of the big things is being able to shift and then play Home World immediately, so I'm looking for Amethyst Steel. Makes me rate this a little bit lower. I think the potential is there for this to be much higher, but for right now, the cards just certainly aren't there for this to be amazing. If there was a 2-cost or 1-cost Float Sim / Jet Sim, this rating might just go up to almost 4. It's all contextual, so it's really hit or miss with how it's going to be played and if it's going to be playable. And right now, I don't think so, but there's potential down the line. Yeah, these are out of 5 here, so let's move on. Isabella Madrigal, Golden Child, so evasive, 3/4. 3 again for an expensive character, dying to Medusa, but yes. During your turn, if no character is quested, it gets +3, and when it quests, nothing else can quest. It would take a very unique type of deck for this to be really good. Essentially, it quests for 4 by itself, and when you Lucky Dime it, before doing anything else, it does give you 4 lore, which is kind of cool to think of. Maybe a blurple deck coming along. For decks that really want to challenge and control the board, or kind of want to have a bunch of pieces in play, it could be pretty cool. And for this, I'm actually going to give it 3 stars. I think it's relatively powerful for a 5-cost, essentially questing for 4 on its own. But it is a very unique deck that would like this card. And, it's not the worst. You can quest with it last if you have more than 3 lore and play worth of other things you want to quest with. But it's fine. And there are definitely going to be situations where this is great. You just top deck it, you both are top decking, it's 4 lore off the top. I mean, if anything's shown us, if anything this format has shown us, or this game has shown us, is that lore matters. Lore matters a lot. And having 4 of it, just by itself is pretty strong when you can do other things with your characters. Solid card. All right, Jet Sim, Challenger 2. Your Float Sim characters get Challenger 2 as well. 2/4 inkable. So working well with the 3-cost one we looked at, which was a 4/2 that can return back. Fine. This one's inkable. We've seen essentially 3-cost 2/4 Challenger 2 before, and it's not been great. This one gives a little bit of a bonus, but it's not too much to where it's like pushing it over the edge. This one's a solid limited card, not really exciting for constructive play. Just kind of move on from it. All right. Luisa Madrigal. So one of the Madrigals, 4/3 rush, uninkable. We've seen this, I think this is the 2nd time, or maybe 3rd time. There's been a Mulan, and I think a Rhea that has the same stats and effect. Neither of which were playable, fine for limited. Moving on. Nothing to see here, really. All right, Magic Broom. I think that this is a card that we were all expecting to see at some point, and the fact that it does exist, a 1-cost broom, and to replace it itself means that a broom deck is probably potentially viable. Without a 1-cost broom, I don't think it was potentially viable at all, because Yin Sid required a broom to draw a card immediately when you play it. This is that 1-cost broom, which we were kind of looking for in that sense, but yeah, this is a solid card. Definitely a good role player. It's going to be 3 stars. It's not a very powerful effect. I do expect this to see play in decks that are not broom decks too, much like we've seen Chernobog's followers do. It's it definitely just being able to replace itself and get a lore. You can quest with it, play another character and banish it, and then you can choose not to. You can just pick it up with the thing later. The fact that you can immediately get a card out of this late in the game if you have another character to play, versus having to wait with Chernobog's followers is relevant. The fact that this doesn't die to a Tinkerbell when played is pretty relevant too, versus Chernobog followers, but I would imagine this mostly dedicated in a Broom's deck, but could see play elsewhere. Alright, 3-cost, 2/4 Broom, no other effects. This is not what we're looking for. This is a 1.5, 2 stars. We've seen this stat line with 2 lore. This is not what we're looking for. Maybe Broom pulls over the edge, but I'm out on this one. It's not exciting, even a Broom deck. All right, Magical Maid, Feather Duster, vanilla 2-cost 2 lore. We've seen this be playable at some point in time in other color pairs, but not really what we're looking for right here. 2 stars, probably fine and limited. Maybe, you know, we have a Pwa, which is the 2-cost 2 lore from the previous set that can shuffle back in, which if you want that effect, you can have. It's kind of, this is just one less ability on that, and yeah, nothing to see here. All right, Marshmallow, Terrifying Snowman, +1 for each card in your hand. So there's a 4-cost 0/5 Jafar from set 1 with the same effect, 2 lore. This is kind of a worse version of it. It's okay limited card. I wouldn't really bat an eye at this constructed. Sure, it can be good to help challenge locations, but that requires you to have a lot of cards in your hand, which we've seen some decks recently kind of try and empty your hand, so not thrilled. All right, Mrs. Potts, Teapot. If you have a Lumiere or Cogsworth in play, draw a card. So similar to the other 4-cost 3/3, this is a 3/4. In this set, one of the Madrigals conditionally lets you draw a card for 4. 2 lore, pretty big. There is a couple cards that can make this viable. I think there's a, you know, some of the Sapphire Cogsworths are fine. Lumiere is the Ruby card that buffs strength, so that can make this a 4/4, which is neat. Replacing yourself is always an upside. I think this is the potential for this card. It's going to sit solidly at 3. If there's any way that these cards kind of all pair well together, this is good. You know, just replacing yourself is always making a card kind of passable if it's inkable. If it comes off the top and you have something nothing in play, it kind of is pretty poor. But 2 lore off the top isn't always that bad. So it's fine. It's not great, but eh. Peppa Madrigal. So 5-cost uninkable, a little rough. 1/5, not the greatest stat line. 1 lore, also kind of not great. But when you play this, exert 1 chosen character, and that character can't ready. Unless they're at a location. So it's kind of like an Elsa, a mini Elsa really, being able to lock something down for a turn. That tempo swing could be really powerful. Keeping something from just kind of winning the game and then being able to challenge it the following turns is a big swing effect. It's cheaper than Elsa, so if you want to bounce it with your Mims, it's another great way to do that. Pairs pretty well with Mim Fox to lock something down, challenge something with Mim Fox, and then challenge the thing you've locked down and play something else to lock the next thing down. I do expect this card to see some play, even in non-Madrigal decks. It's a fine card. I think people underestimated the Ursala to begin with too, or not Ursala, Elsa to begin with too, in set 1. And this is kind of a cheaper effect. Granted, there's only 1, but a lot of decks have kind of changed how they play and don't play too many threats out all at once because of ways to sweep the board or ways to kind of help fight other decks. You gotta save some of your resources for later. So I think this is a solid 3 stars. I think this will be played and constructed in some capacity. Maybe there's 1 or 2 of in some decks, but definitely it is a powerful effect, locking something down for a full turn. And Amethyst is the color to repeat your enters play effects. So, sweet. Excited for it. All right. Peter Pan, Shadow Finder. So Rush Evasive. So basically to start here, we're looking at 3-cost 2/3 instead of 3/3, comparing it to set 1 Rafiki. -1 strength is a pretty big deal, as most things that you want to challenge these days have 3 health. It is evasive, so that's kind of nice, but your characters with evasive get rush. I think this is kind of a worse Pan Shadow in a lot of ways, mainly because a lot of the characters that are evasive are understated for their cost, meaning that they're giving up some strength and willpower to be evasive to potentially gain more lore. So evasive cards aren't really something I'm looking for to have high strength, meaning that the rush is less likely to be relevant than the other way around. Cards with rush are usually statted in a way that they are meant to trade with things pretty well and not be too much caring about the lore part of it. So I think this is a bit worse than the Pan Shadow, but still potentially playable. Giving it the 2.5 star rating there. It's okay, but not spectacular. But cool card. I like it. Pico, Helpful Toucan. I think this is Zazu's cousin. Vanilla, not great. Just kind of moving on from it. Nothing to say here. TikTok. Evasive 4/7, kind of cool. I think it's a limited card. I'm gonna give it 2.5 for limited. Not something I'm really looking for constructed. At this cost, we have a lot better options to play. But cool card. I like that it exists. I'm happy. I'm kind of glad that it's not in steel as well for Hook, kind of like an adversity to Hook. But yeah, neat. Ursala, Sea Witch. This one is very similar to Prince Eric from set 1, the 1/3 for 2 that kind of challenges and kind of helps hold the board. We played a lot in steel decks. This card's kind of been outclassed at this point by Rafiki and things like that. There's a potential for it to be okay, but there's a lot of competition at the 2 cost, especially in Amethyst, to either replace yourself or be a 3/3, which all the mims are just way bigger than they should be. Stat-wise, I think this one's going to get pushed out. Kind of cool for limited, not great, and who knows, maybe you want this to shift onto, which we'll get to the shift card next. So Ursala, the Sea Witch, 7 cost, inkable, great. 4/7, quest for 3, huge body. Dodges Medusa, dodges Maui from just killing it by itself. Whenever this quest, exert chosen character, so it really can help play board control too. And you can shift. So shifting onto the Ursala we just saw, shifting on top of 2 cost Ursala, which takes a spell out of their hand. This card's pretty powerful. And the last line, other characters can't exert to sing. So other characters can't sing, except for this one. That does mean your characters as well can't sing, except for this one. Something to kind of make sure you play appropriately with. And it doesn't have to be exerted to have that effect, like we've seen with Tiana, where it had to be exerted to your opponent not be able to sing songs. This doesn't stop them from playing them, but this stops them from being sung, which there is a big difference. Some of the cards are a lot worse if they can't be sung, such as Whole New World. Yeah, this card's huge. It's pretty impressive in play. I expect to see this see some amount of play. Whether or not it'll be kind of thrown into an existing deck like Emerald Amethyst, or kind of spawn its own type of deck. We'll see. I imagine Emerald Amethyst is going to be one of the key places for it to go to, because the 2 cost Ursala is so powerful, and having an effect like this is kind of bonus points to stop other people from singing a song. This one's getting a solid 4 stars. It's really powerful, and certainly is one of the better cards we have in the set. And I expect to see quite a bit of play. Whether it's its own archetype or if it goes into some is yet to be seen. But strong card, pretty excited by it, pretty terrified of it, to be honest. But we'll definitely see how it all plays out. And 3 lore is just amazing too. Just a minute here. And next up, Yin Sid, so legendary back to back. 2 cost 1/3. When you play this, if you have a Magic Broom in play, draw a card. So it works with our 1 cost Broom, like we saw before, the 1/2 that when you play a character you can draw cards. So functionally you can play that on turn 1, and then on turn 2 quest with it, play this, draw a card from this, and then banish your other Broom, so you draw 2. You're getting a rebuy out of one of the cards, but still very strong. And when you have 2 or more Broom characters in play, it gets +2 lore, so it can quest for quite a bit. Being able to replace itself and the ability to draw a card is pretty impressive for only 2 lore. For only 2 ink, I should say. And having the ability to get 3 ink is quite good as well. I'm skeptical to call this kind of a home run, like awesome card. Let's just say if it said if you had another character in play, draw a card. If you have 2 or more other characters in play, get 2 lore. Fantastic. One of the best cards in the game. Specifically Brooms, they're not terribly impressive yet. There's a couple of them that have kind of met that level of competitiveness to really be good, and is a really cool build around. I think this might be close to good enough. It's not going to quite get 4 stars. It might be. I'd say this is like a 3.75 or close to 4, right around there. But it's not a home run. It's really good, and it does spawn its own kind of archetype, which we haven't seen. I'm guessing it's going to be Steel Amethyst Brooms, and definitely it's going to be one of the best cards in that deck. You want to kind of keep as many as you can in your opening hand. But yeah, you have to play in a Broom deck, of course. Whether or not that deck is fully there or not, I'm not certain. I'd have to really play the games out and really feel it out to make sure that there's enough there. Certainly getting access to the location from set 3 that buffs the Brooms, that lets them kind of move there for free, and also buffs the amount of lore they have, huge deal. But there is the potential. This card is fantastic, and Brooms is actually something you have to be worried about going into Chicago, which is the next challenge that we'll have set 4 legal, which I will be at. It'll be a lot of fun. Who knows, I may be playing Brooms, you never know. But powerful card, powerful card. Pretty happy with it existing, and kind of cool to see this character again. I think my daughter didn't know who it was, and I had to debate whether or not to show them Fantasia or not, because sometimes it's a little scary for kids. It was for me, but who knows. Next up, Poor Unfortunate Souls. Fantastic song. Love the song. The card itself, though, return chosen character, item, or location, cost 2 or less to hand. Kind of a befuddle, but instead of just character or item, it can hit locations as well, but it is also a song where befuddle wasn't. I've never been a fan of these cards in general. The bounce effects for super conditional. Obviously Mother Knows Best is different. This card's a 2. Maybe it'll play a role. It being a song could be relevant for some cards, but not super thrilled by it. Next up, second star on the right, Sing Together 10. So you draw 5 cards. 5 cards is a lot. And if you ever double cast this with an Ursala, that's a lot too. Uninkable is hard. But there are plenty of ways. Maybe you play in a Amber Amethyst deck where you have some of the cheaper singers like Cinderella, the Ursala we saw earlier, or even Ariel, that really make this 10 pretty easy to get to, maybe turn 3 or 4. 5 is a lot. Whether or not that's enough to really worth the inclusion of many of these, or if you just play like 1 or 2, I'm not certain. It's a powerful effect. Again, to really say how it's going to play out, I'm not sure. I'm giving this 2.5 stars out of 5. It's potentially fine. 5 cards, again, ton of cards, but it's really high risk, high reward. If you ever get 2 of these and you don't have 10 ink or you don't have any characters in play, it's kind of like, how do I do this? I can see this being played in some decks as a 1 of or 2 of pretty freely, but beyond that, it's a tough sell. Tough sell. Next up, Swing into Action. A card I actually think is pretty cool. We've seen stuff like this before in different forms. We've had ones that keep something exerted for a turn in the previous sets. This one gives rush immediately. That can be worth the full card depending on what you're rushing into. It's cool for limited play. I don't think this is going to touch Constructed too much because I mostly think that the characters you want to play that you could give rush to aren't really things that you want to be rushing with all the time. Meaning that characters are probably in your deck for specific reasons. And unless it has rush, its stats aren't probably in such a way that you really want to give it rush to start challenging. So this one's getting a 2 stars. It could be played limited, probably pretty good in limited, just because there aren't cards like Maui or Mimfox in limited. But cool card. I like that it exists. Yeah. Next up, Ursala's Plan. Each opponent chooses and exerts one of their characters that they can't ready at the start of the next turn. So kind of a one-time lockdown, kind of much similar to Elsa from set 1, but they choose, so it can get around cards with ward, so it can maybe affect cards like Prince John if they only have 1 character in play. Solid card. It's uninkable, so it's rough. It's one of those where if it was inkable it'd be too good, but at uninkable it's probably not quite good enough. I'm gonna give this 2 stars. It could be powerful, and much like we've seen some cards that have your opponent choose to get rid of things like Tremaine and stuff. Tremaine's a body, and this isn't a body, and Tremaine just gets rid of it. This just exerts it, which you have something else to kind of pair with. Of course, being cheaper and being an action is relevant, but it's a cool card. Whenever we see something like this type of effect be inkable down the line, if we ever do, something to look out for. But at uninkable, it's not great. Mystical Rose. Just a moment here. Mystical Rose lets you banish it. Chosen Beast gets +2 lore this turn, and if you have any characters named Bell, it move 3 damage around. So much like the Bell we saw earlier, the 5-cost Shift Bell, it has the same effect when you banish it. But more importantly, giving a Beast +2 lore. The Beast that I think this works the best with, of course, is set 2 Beast, that the 6-cost 4/5 that whenever something's damaged on their side, it gets to ready itself. So there's the potential that you have, let's say, 2 of these in play, because they're items and you can just play them out. You get your Beast Relentless to be in play for a turn, which is already a tall order to make that thing survive. Ursala, 2-cost, helps clear the way for that Beast. And also the ability to draw a bunch of cards with Amethyst might let you overwhelm them. But giving that character specifically +2 lore means that any trades that you potentially will do with it in play, with other characters you have, could be 6 lore swings. So they have 3 characters exerted. You have a Beast in play and 3 other characters. You play this, give it 2 more lore, and that's 4 lore per challenge that you're doing, really. So potentially pretty powerful. As it stands, it does ask quite a bit, but it also just has the ability to be, any Beast you have in play, just +2 lore. So it's a 2-cost plus potentially +2 lore effect, which can be powerful. I'm giving this 3 stars. Has the ability to be broken in the right deck. Might be an okay card. It's getting 3, not 2, because of its inkability. And it's fine. The damage moving part kind of plays into maybe the Beast itself that I mentioned, Relentless challenging a bunch. You challenge with it one of those times, one of those permutations, and then you untap and lore with it again, or you can keep challenging things. Could be good. But a lot of potential. Not sure if it's fully there, but could be good. Rose Lantern. So another one here. 2-cost inkable item. Pay 2 and exert it to move 1 damage around. That's a lot of ink to move things around. I'm not a fan. It is inkable, so it's not a 1. Basically, the default for things being 1s are uninkability and unplayability. It's okay, but it's not thrilling. You know, fine limited card. I'm moving on from it. Nothing really good to say about that. Triton's Tridents. So 2-cost item, banish this item. Something gets +1 strength for each card in your hand this turn. I think that there's going to be no instance where you play this over a crab, but in a world where you don't have access to crabs or your deck wants to have much items to play, it could be played to 2. It helps challenge locations pretty nicely, but it's not thrilling. Kind of moving on from it. And again, I don't have the viewer properly set up for locations because it's very windowed. Casa Madrigal is a 1-cost, 1/6, has no lore, but has the text, if you have a character here at the start of your turn, gain 1 lore. It's a 2, it's inkable, and it's going to be very similar to the 1-cost 1/4s, but it's a 1/6, because you're going to have the potential to just like, I don't even know, a little more stable version of the 1/4s, but you can't play it on turn 1, so it could be okay, but it's probably not. But I was getting a 2 there. Last Amethyst card is Ursala's Lair. Again, apologies for the thing here. It's got 3 cost uninkable, 2 to move, and 6 to challenge and banish it. But whenever a character is banished in a challenge while here, you may return them to your hand. Your character's name Ursala get +1 lore, and it has passive of lore. There's not enough Ursala cards, I think, for this to be super relevant for the benefit of that one part. The ability to kind of pick up characters that have been banished in a challenge by moving them here could be okay. It being uninkable is a bit much to ask for a card like this because it's not always going to be good, especially with only 6 willpower. It'll die to Maui. This is going to get 2.5 stars just for its uninkability. If it was inkable, I'd probably give it a 3, but it's a little bit rough to get this going and have it be really good. There's no 1-cost Ursala to really make it something to work for the +1 lore gain, and it's a little bit hard to manage. Locations have been a bit disappointing from my perspective on how they played out, just because of all the rush characters and things like that. But yeah, that wraps up here for Amethyst. So let's move on to the next color here in just a minute.